I started off like this. I say, how many of you in this room want your personal kids to be in foster care? And none of them raise their hand because they know the hell that they had to go through.
Of course.
And then I say, they're going to be. And they look at me like, I'm glad I like this guy because I want to beat him up right now. And then I say, if you don't reverse the patterns. Hello, everybody. Mike Donahue here with Davey D.
Morning. Hello.
We are sorry we weren't there last week for you,
Mike.
some of you that actually watched this. I was moving. So I moved 20 minutes away from where I lived currently, or where I was living. And we bought another house and we moved in. So we just got crazy busy with moving. So yeah, but wanted to say a shout out to all the Bostonians watching this.
Missed you guys. Missed you. I did get some feedback from our one fan that, like, what happened to your episode? So we're back, Johnny.
Thank you, fan. Appreciate it. No, it's been a crazy week moving and stuff. Then I had schools I had to speak. I had a whole week of schools I had to go do, and
Yeah.
Everybody's winding down on that because end of the school year. But I got a booking for May or late April actually, out of the blue.
That's
I usually
unusual.
Don't get that this late, but what's that?
I said that's unusual.
Yeah, because they're winding down.
Graduations and all that. Right.
Testing is going on right now too.
Right.
So, but sometimes they have money in the coffers
They gotta use it.
They got to get rid of it. So
right.
I'll take it. So no, it's good. And then I just gear it a little bit different when I do the assembly. I just do it, kind of setting it up for next year because we do have a second year program that we do that I try to upsell them on.
So maybe we should clarify for everybody, Michael, about the work that you do and that you've done for, a couple of decades now, which is working in schools, working with particularly, young students, but mostly adolescents, and conveying your own experiences. And, Value Up is an excellent title because you're telling people that they need to have value, these kids. So, and I've said this before, my brother, there are some things in life that we can't quantify, but I can just, say out loud that my brother has probably saved countless lives from suicide, from, you just never know who you're touching. He touches a lot of people in his travels, and it comes from the heart. It comes from experiences. It comes from the topics that we're talking about now. So I think that's a good, a good segue into what we wanted to talk about today, which is trying to get out of those familiar patterns, the narcissism and the, being gravitating towards toxic people. And I think, Michael, you've shed a lot of that all over the country just by doing the work that you do. You've been able to, come upon a different way of life faster than I have, that's for sure. Because, I think with each experience you have and trying to mentor to these students, you gain some self-esteem on your own. I don't know. Is that a fair statement? Or
yeah. I think one of the frustrating things though for me is that that's what you see when you're talking to kids is if a kid comes up and talks to me afterwards about what's going on in their life, 90% of it, 9 times out of 10, it's a family dysfunction they were just born into. And I know maybe they don't know this at the time, but I do because of how old I am and experience I've had, is that that's just going to repeat itself. One of the things every year I have this thing I speak at up in Duluth, Minnesota. It's a aging out of the foster care system. So all these kids that are at this retreat are graduating from high school, but they've been in foster care their whole lives, or pretty much their whole lives. So they've got crazy stories, but they've also made it. Like they're graduating from high school and they have this kind of celebratory retreat for them. And I'm the keynote speaker. I've been doing it for about 15 years. And so the first thing I say to them that night, I do my assembly and they love it because it's very kid oriented. It's very good. It's very entertaining. It's funny. It's good. The next day I do a workshop and I start the workshop off like this. I say, with the context that I know that they like me and I know that they think I'm a good speaker and I'm funny. So I started off like this. I said, how many of you in this room want your personal kids to be in foster care? And none of them raise their hand because they know the hell that they had to go through.
Of
And then
course.
I say, they're going to be. And they look at me like, I'm glad I like this guy because I want to beat him up right now. And then I say, if you don't reverse the patterns,
Cycle.
if you don't,
Right.
they're going to be. I mean, it's just going to happen. You're
Right.
going to repeat these things if you don't do the work it takes to reverse the curse or whatever, however you want to say it. Reverse this family dysfunction that is rooted and deep, and it's probably more part of your DNA, your emotional DNA, than it is.
Right.
And
Right.
that's my goal, is to help them be aware of that, because if you're not aware of it, you're just going to go with it. You're just going
It's
to
like a
go with the
magnetic
flow.
field that's still there. And you know, I'm still unpacking all the dysfunction and still leaning into people that come from similar backgrounds that are, toxic. The last work environment that I left, it was, I was right back at our kitchen table at Prospect Street. Same players, same toxicity, same dynamics, same, false intimacy, gossip, crap, infighting, and just,
And everybody's comfortable with it, right?
right, right,
That's the thing. It happens, but when you're comfortable with it, that's your normal.
right.
That's weird.
When you start to look outside that box, it does get uncomfortable. Not only for me, it got uncomfortable, but for everybody around me. Like, I didn't fit the cog anymore. I didn't, and I never really did on some level. But as I got better and sort of delved into some of the stuff that we've talked about in our family, and recovered from that in a sense, it the relationships got more and more awkward, and at to the point where I'm like, you people are fucking crazy. Like, I got to get out of here.
So
This
why
is
was it awkward?
because I started to change. I started to get better. I started to expect better treatment for myself. So that didn't, coincide with the theme that,
Yeah.
again, it's was right back at our house at 106 Prospect Street. Um, Nothing changed, just the faces, but
Right.
same dynamics. And when I started to recover from 106 Prospect Street and what happened there, everything else around me started to change. And we talked about this earlier. I'm still kind of in no man's land because I know what toxicity is now, and I can sense when it's like creeping up on me. But now, like, okay, now what? Now what do I do? Who are the winners, or the right people that I want to surround myself with? I'm not even sure yet. I know what doesn't work. I know what has been disastrous for me in the past, like this past work relationship I was just in. These people were just so toxic, so, like, and I got, um, I, I, I was able to see it clearly, but, I guess my dilemma now is, okay, you know what dysfunction is. Now what?
But
Now,
you took that job when you were still coming out of it. Your eyes weren't completely
of
wide open
course,
yet.
right,
So do
right.
you beat yourself up a little bit for taking that job? I
A
mean,
little
like,
bit, or for hanging on as long as I did and having the faith that, something might change. It was never going to change. It was
right.
never going to change. So I look at that, and look at the clock on the wall, like, wow, that was a lot of wasted time with those people who, I don't want to sit in judgment of them. They're just never going to, they're never going to reach a point where I'm at right now. Not that that's any great height, but in doing some of this work and some of the work that I've done on myself, therapy and what have you, um, I have changed. And it's awkward because part of me is still, leans into that dysfunction. I can smell it a mile away. But then as I get closer and the smell gets even more intense, I'm like, okay, no. Right. So now
Right.
that's where I am right
It's
now.
weird because that smell draws you, but then you get in it and it smells like crap. It's,
Right.
it's
Right.
awful. It's like,
Right.
when I always talk to kids about bad lifestyles. I say it's like eating chocolate covered poop. You put it in your mouth, it tastes fine. You take a bite out of it, it's gonna taste like crap,
not
you know
so
what I mean? Because
much.
it is crap,
Right,
you know what I mean?
right.
That's what that is. It's like you get drawn in by this, because sometimes those people are really charismatic and they know how to sell you on that they
Grooming.
are functional, that because they've got money or they've
Right.
got some kind of success, and so you're like, "Oh, these people are good," and then you get in, you take a bite out of their lifestyle, and you're like, "Oh my god, this is
I'm
just like
looking under the
106
covers
Prospect
these
Street."
days.
What's
Before I
that?
enter, I said I'm looking under the covers these days before I jump headlong into any relationship. I'm interviewing people in my head, kind of like, okay, reading between the lines, kind of like, and it's just like I said, it's very hard, it's very awkward. Like this last bout I had with mom, um, I started to fall back into the same patterns. Like all of a sudden now I'm becoming her surrogate husband again. I was able to see that this time instead of just going into the abyss and drowning in that role that I'm so accustomed to. I said, "Oh my God!" When she said to me, "Oh, I don't know what I'd do without David," I was like, "Okay, now this breaks, right?"
Yeah,
Um, that's that's what I'm talking about. So there's this awareness that I have, but I'm still falling back into the husband role with mom. It makes me uncomfortable now. It never made me uncomfortable before because that was just the role that I was given. So again, I'm kind of like at a crossroads. Now what? Right?
yeah.
So yeah. Um,
I think, we should talk about the roles, like being first of all, I think being aware of what your role is in your family. If you're watching this right now and you're like, "I don't know what these guys are talking about," you probably have a role that if your family's dysfunctional, there's a set of expectations for you. David's expectations was the savior. He needed to save the family with being good and being an emotional support to my mom who was causing all kinds of chaos with her choices and her lifestyle that had nothing to do with us. It was just what she was doing, and David was the savior.
it was
David
her
had to,
normal, right?
yeah. And you might have and mine was the scapegoat. I was the blame for all the bad stuff that was happening. So we settled into these roles. And like David's saying, he feels that when he goes into a job situation, he's got to be the savior. He's going to be the one. I I I almost feel like I'm the rebellious one. Like I'm the one that is going to cause, eventually, you know, I've never been fired from a job. Well, no, one job I did get fired from. But pretty much, most, I just would wear myself. I'd get out because I was the truth teller, and finally, it just wore
That's what
itself out.
happened to me in this last,
Yeah, you were
I've been
telling the
working
truth.
for myself, but I had one client, and like I said, it was my home, my childhood home all over again, just with adult players and higher stakes on some
Yeah,
level. Right. Yeah.
I think recognizing that role is important, and I also think that not beating yourself up for going back in those roles because like I think it's really good that we both of us have been in the situation where we start to go down into that thing and you go, oh, wait, and then you pull out and the pulling out, maybe you get in deeper than you want to get in, but the fact that you pulled out is great
But it's
because some
not as
people don't
deep
pull
as
out. We have siblings, David, that haven't pulled out. You know what I
no.
mean? We've got
Right.
cousins and other people and people that are close to us that haven't pulled out. They're still entrenched in that mindset,
Right.
you know?
Right. And we don't, so I feel now that I don't delve as deep as I did say 2 years ago, 3 years ago. But
Yeah.
again,
It's a
it
victory.
leaves it leaves me in the position where, okay, this has been my role. This is what I've known all my life. Now what? Now where is my true identity? Where is David now?
Yeah.
Right. So yeah.
And I think that's like talking to people about this stuff is hard because again, like how I do it in schools, because I do talk to kids about this in schools. And so if we get into once in a while, we call it Success Academy, where I do the assembly and I have a leadership breakout. And then I have a breakout for kids who are struggling academically. We call it Success Academy. And that's what I talk to them about because most of the kids that get put in that room with me are kids that come from 106 Prospect Street. You know what I mean? Like they come from a situation like that where it's dysfunctional and crazy, and so I'm brutally honest with them about making that. I actually do a physical turn. I'm like, you're gonna go against this flow that's coming at you, that's really strong, and you're gonna feel disloyal. You're gonna feel like you're in no man's land. You're lonely. You're this is uncharted territory. So you're by yourself. There's not a whole lot of emotional support. There's a lot of emotional support, and you felt it with mom. There's a lot of emotional support for doing it wrong, for doing it dysfunctionally,
Right.
right? She gives you the attaboys, she gives you the love, she gives you the whatever. I need David in my
It's
life,
ringing that bell. Bing, bing, bing.
yeah,
Right.
that used to work for you. It doesn't
Right.
work for you anymore because
No.
of your growth. But that's what happens to those kids. They get people in general, if they want to make that turn and go against that family, they got to know a few things, that you're going to be lonely for a while, and you're going to be the outcast, and you're going to be tagged as the rebellious one, or what do you think, you're better than us, and all that kind of stuff. And we've got some people in our family that have done that, and we've done that, and I know, I've had conversations with them. It's a tough turn, it really is, because you feel disloyal, you feel like you're
Michael,
messing
I
with
I,
people.
I kind of have jumped into your role now that you've got this sort
Thank
of.
you.
Uh, can you take it back now? Yeah. Um, so I'm now the scapegoat. So when I say these things out loud, it is met with not just adversity but extreme adversity, and you are now public enemy. Both my sisters, because I've spoken out about this, and you've been doing this for most of our lives. You've been, on one way or another, you've kind of rebelled against that system. But now that I did, it's actually, like, they expect that from you. They don't expect it from me. They expect
Right.
some kind of, conformance. And I said to our sister, because I, spent most of my young adult life being her surrogate husband. I told her, and it really hit home because it's been reverberating back. I said, Patty, have a funeral for Uncle David. He's gone. The guy that used to save you, the guy that used to do everything for you, that picked up the pieces and kept you just above the waterline, he's dead. So say
Yeah.
your mass, do what you need to do, and I was sort of, it was a little bit abrasive, but I was sort of saying, like, this is a different Uncle David. You know what I mean? He's gone. The old one is gone. The one who would sacrifice and give up everything for you, the one that, I don't know what I do without David in the moment. He's out.
Yeah.
And it was liberating for me to do that. But there was a backlash, like a big
Oh,
backlash, because
yeah.
I said it out loud.
Yep.
I would call it a coward, blah, 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 all kinds of stuff.
Right.
I'm not enabling anybody anymore, and at my own expense. And that's what I did most of my life. I had a lot of missed opportunities because I played the role of being the surrogate husband. There was no man in our family. Dad was gone. Every other, male role model was a piece of dirt, and I picked up that role for everybody. And
Yeah.
it to my own detriment. To
Well,
my
yeah,
own
but
detriment.
David, I want to say this though. I think that it started out with nobility, like it did. Yeah, there was some enmeshment and there was some dysfunction that overlaps to it. But David, you got a good heart, and you were trying to do the best you could to you saw the dysfunction. You saw, as a 20-year-old, as a well, you started when you were like 14, but you saw this dysfunction, wanted to help, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think what it came to was that help was what you said. It just enabled them, and I want to make that clear because I think it's good to try to help. It's good to try to be somebody that can stem the tide of this massive crap that's going on in people's lives. But now that we're older, in our 60s, we're realizing that people they have to want to help. They have to want help.
Right.
Otherwise, you're causing them to be. You're prolonging
You're
the
keeping them from
inevitable.
drowning. That's what I
Right.
did.
Right.
Right.
And maybe
Right.
they needed to drown a little bit so
Right.
they could wake
Right.
up. And
Everybody
and
needs to
that's
hit
that's
their
just one
bottom.
of those life things that you don't. you don't have a crystal ball, so you don't know what's gonna like how much is too much, how less is too less. You just do it. But then you come to the point, and you very wisely came to the point where this isn't helping her. This isn't helping
Right.
anybody. This is
Right.
just enabling people
Right.
to be weak, and that's a tough choice to make.
Part of it too was, I'm starting to add a little bit more validity to this. Is that when Patty started having kids, um, the boys especially, I stepped up, and for a while I was sort of, what did that really do? Um, but yesterday I spent the day with Justin, who's one of the nephews that I helped to raise. Um, and he has a beautiful relationship with his kids. He loves his kids like nobody else. Even Joey, on some level, my other nephew, who still struggles, um, has stepped up on some level for his son. So I did give them something back. So that, and it's sort of like it is being paid forward. Sometimes it just, it takes a while to manifest. I was pretty down for a while. You remember when I was sort of like,
Yeah.
you know, Mike, nothing I ever did for those kids came to fruition. Da, 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 da. But that's not true. I put a
No,
lot of time and
no
effort
way.
into those kids,
Yeah.
and they are, whether they realize it or not, I don't really care. I'm not looking for accolades and attaboys.
Yeah.
I want to see them pass that on to their own kids on some level,
Yeah,
right?
when you build a fence or build a house, you see the results of it. When you're investing emotionally into kids, you don't see it's not like you see the immediate results.
Right,
It comes out later, and yeah, both those boys are benefiting from your input, and Patty's, and everybody's input, right? Alice's input. I mean, everybody has input, but there's also dysfunction with all of it too. And
right,
I look at my own kids. I know that, you know, no, they're not experiencing the same exact crap that I went through, but it's not perfect, right? I mean, there's still stuff that
Mike.
was
Your kids are
residual. Well,
weird.
let me finish because I know what you're gonna say. You're gonna try to protect me on this, but I'm just saying, I'm not trying to beat myself up. I'm just being a realist that yeah, there's residual. I know there's residual. I know that they had to deal with some of my anger. I never hurt them or beat them or anything like that. But I, I'd get intense, or there was things I was still dealing with coming out of Prospect Street when I had kids, and then I was in a marriage that wasn't great, and we ended up getting divorced. So there was some dysfunction there too, and so. But the thing is, what all you got to look back and you got to go, the best of me was there too,
Right,
and my
right,
and it was the best of me was in raising my kids, and the worst of me, my kids had a front row seat to my recovery. I'm still walking through some really traumatic things that happened to us growing up. I mean, sexual abuse and
right.
um beatings. I mean, like traumatized beatings that happened in that home. I mean, the list goes on, but the thing is, coming out of that, you're processing life, and anybody that's around you is going to be part of that process, and
Right.
hopefully you're going up. Hopefully you're processing up,
Yeah,
and no, was it perfect 20 years ago? No, it's better now. It is better now.
yeah,
That's what I look at. I go, it's no, I'm ashamed of some of the things I did 25 years ago or
yeah.
20 years ago, but I'm
I think you beat yourself up too much about that, and I've said that to you in the past.
I know.
Michael's kids are artsy and deep, and they're cool. They're just cool kids. And I think that the backbone that you gave all of them is going to serve them well throughout the rest of their lives. I mean, Keegan is a writer. He's kind of like this brooding model writer type. He's a good kid. They're all good kids, every single one of them.
Yeah.
Um, and
And they had a lot of good input, me, and then
no
their
doubt.
mom and their family. I mean, they've had it. That's what I'm saying. They've had a lot of good input, and so yeah,
And it's hard to say that is when they've got these little luxury problems. It's hard to not to. I know with Justin and Joey, I would minimize, like, you have no idea what we went through. Like, you didn't get your Game Boy, on time. Really? You want to talk about mayonnaise sandwiches? Right. We used to eat mayonnaise
Running
sandwiches.
for our lives. Oh
Right.
shit. Yeah.
Right. Cheap food, not a lot of food, you know.
Who's the
Um
new boyfriend? Oh shoot. Yeah.
right. You know, um, and I don't want to minimize their experiences at all, but it's really tough to try to, and some situations, even in life, you see these prima donnas and these princesses all over social media, whatever. Like, you have no idea, dude,
Yeah,
what a
but
rough day is, right?
I'm right. But it's all relative, and this is funny because on my other podcast I do with this teenage girl, her name is Delaney Spencer. She's awesome, and for our company we do a podcast for kids. It's called Monday Night with Mike, and it's awesome. Anyway, she said this the other day. I've never heard this because we were talking about scaling it, right? How some kids going through traumatic stuff, and other kids aren't as much if you put it on a scale.
Right,
But she said you can't put it on a scale because she goes, let's say you fall down and you hurt your leg. And that's the worst thing that's ever happened to you up until this point in your life. That's the worst thing that's ever happened to you. You scraped your leg, it scared you. You hurt yourself pretty bad. Maybe it was more than just a scrape, but it was like a deep wound or something. But that's the worst thing that happened to you. And then you compare it to, she goes, and she said me, she goes, compared to you, who, you went through all that traumatic stuff in Boston. That's the worst thing that happened to you. But it's still the worst thing that happened to you. It's like it's still, you can't scale it because you don't
right,
have the experience of the other
sure,
thing. And
right,
I thought that was really wise of her to say that because that's really what it comes down to. Like my kids have come at me about some things, like dad, you played rough with us too much. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I was playing with you though. I mean,
right,
but,
right,
but, but then I stopped and I look back at it and go, they're probably right. Cause that was traumatic for them. And I probably need to own that, and say, "Hey, sorry about that,"
right, right,
whatever. Like, because again, you can't scale it.
right. Yeah,
I want
yeah,
to, because again, I want to go. What are you talking about? Like,
right, right. Are you
I
kidding
was
me?
running for
Right,
my
yeah,
life when I was your age. So,
right.
yeah,
Yeah, it's you're right. It's relative. It's all relative, and it's hard to take away from anybody's experience. I mean, and on the same token, we weren't, at least we weren't in the projects. There was a lot of shit that went on with other kids, and just in Weymouth, it was not exactly the 5-star community. Leave it to Beaver, right?
yeah.
So yeah, I mean
No,
there
you
were
didn't go over
definitely
there unless you were looking for trouble. I mean, I remember
right.
walking through there like really fast,
Yeah,
on the way
yeah.
to Women's Pond. You you had to go through the projects to get there. Like, oh
Right,
shit.
right. And it really wasn't, it was, wasn't that, it wasn't like the ghetto, it wasn't
Yeah, it
like,
wasn't like Carina Green in Chicago, you know, which I've been to,
yeah.
which
Okay.
they just leveled it like a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Anyways, well, this has been a good podcast, Davey D.
Yeah.
For all of you out there who are struggling with family dynamics and this gravity pull towards
Change it.
dysfunction,
You can change it.
yeah, work at it. Do the
Right.
work. It's going to take work. I'm not going to
Right.
sugarcoat it. It's going to take work, mental
Smell
work,
it.
emotional work. What's that?
Smell it.
Smell it and
You
get
can
out.
smell it. It's coming at you like, okay, you might think it's really, and then the French toast ends up getting burnt, like,
Yeah.
like, it smells good. Maybe not so much.
Yeah.
Right.
Don't
Right.
don't bite
Yeah.
into that poop. All right.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
See you
We'll see you
all.
next week.
See you next
Hopefully,
week.
David
Yep.
and I, we may do it every couple weeks. I don't know. We'll figure it out. And, hey, actually, those of you that do watch us, if you're, give us some feedback on
Yeah.
whether
Some
you,
likes, some not likes, whatever.
yeah, whether you want this to be a weekly thing. David and I come up with content. I mean, that's not an
Right.
issue, but
This is Mike. This is just like, this conversation we just had is something. It's like we had a similar conversation yesterday. So it's, this is
right.
like easy. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
All
All
right,
right,
Mikey. Love you.
guys.
Ciao for
Love you,
now.
David E. See you
Bye.
later, guys.
Bye bye.